What are the things that foreigners complained about when living in China? I lived there for 7 years and heard numerous complaints from many of my colleagues over the years. There were certainly a few themes. I'll admit, some of my colleagues could be a little bit entitled in terms of the way they thought the country should be run, or at least the way people should behave. The best example, I feel like, is the British guy who told me he came to China to get to know the Chinese people, but was disappointed they didn't speak English in China. But what were some of the other things that people complained about? And just for good measure, because my in-laws have been staying with me for the last 3 and a bit months, what are some of the things that they have not really appreciated about my beautiful country here of New Zealand? We'll go through 3 for each, and you guys let me know the ones that I've missed or that other complaints you may have heard either way about either country or your own country or other places you have traveled to. Foreigners in China, the number one complaint I feel like I heard was the lack of queuing and a bit of the pushing and the shoving. Like when getting on a bus or getting on a subway or getting on the elevator, the rushing of people to get on, in particular in elevators and the subway, when the people who are on the thing haven't had a chance to get off and people are already trying to push their way on. I also found that one pretty frustrating because, just physically, it's harder to get on if someone else is moving literally in the opposite direction into your face. It makes more sense to me, let them get off and then you can get on. But I think there's a bit of a fear that if you wait, you're going to miss out. If you snooze, you lose. So you better hurry up and get on. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. Still on the subways these days at busy stations, at least the ones that I've visited in China, you will hear sometimes the attendants over a megaphone telling people, 先下后上, like let the people off, then get on, because people still need to be reminded about that thing. It is pretty frustrating, and it's one I don't appreciate about China for sure. I do feel like it's gotten a bit better over the years. I do feel like a lot of the pushing and shoving came from people who maybe grew up in China at a time when there was more scarcity of resources like buses and things like that. But yeah, it is kind of a pain. We are much more used to queuing, at least in the Western countries I have visited. Second one, which I don't think is as big a deal, is squat toilets. Some people can't stand squat toilets. I think it's because a lot of Westerners can't squat. I'm able to get my full 6-foot frame, in a full squat. So it's certainly a learning experience to use a squat toilet, but by no means something that I would kind of plan my day around. I wouldn't have to think, I need to use the toilet. I better find a nice fancy shopping mall which is going to have a sit-down toilet. But certainly a lot of my colleagues did not appreciate the use of squat toilets. So I feel like that one's just a bit of getting used to it. Maybe a bit of yoga to get a bit of flexibility in the old legs to get that squat going. It's good to be able to squat. It's comfortable when you can get all the way down. I guess getting back up can be a bit of a problem with age, but not really a big deal for me. I'm not inclined to agree so much with my foreign colleagues on the squat toilets. And the last one, smoking. Chinese people, I feel like, smoke at a higher rate, at least than here in New Zealand. Smoking rates in New Zealand are down as the government's increased the prices to try and phase them out. We certainly vape a lot more here than smoking, but there's a lot more relaxed rules about where you can smoke in China. I've certainly, even as of recently, seen people smoking in the no smoking sections of restaurants, and nobody bats an eyelid. The staff don't say anything, their fellow customers don't say anything. Woe betide anybody who tries to smoke indoors in a restaurant here in New Zealand. It's taken very seriously. A lot of people will call you out on any smoking. It is seen as a very egregious offense, and many people take that attitude with them when heading to China. I guess it is unpleasant if you don't like the smell of smoke. It's not really a nice one when you walk into an elevator and someone has just been smoking or is currently smoking. There is no escaping it. So yeah, that's one I feel like I can get a little bit on board with. it would be nicer if people were a little bit more accommodating of people around them who don't appreciate smoking, especially like pregnant women and children and stuff don't really want to be around your secondhand smoke. But that is a cultural one that I feel like is, again, still kind of changing over time. When I first moved to China in 2005, I used to see people smoking in hospitals and like literally a teacher smoking in a classroom. So I feel like it's getting less, but it is still something of a work in progress. It is going to be for the younger generation to call out the older generation on these habits and then try to break them over time. What about the flip side? What have my in-laws been complaining about New Zealand? Number one, I would say, is the fact that there's nothing to do. If you like coming out to a park and having a run around in the sunshine, walking on the grass, then there's certainly plenty to do. But in terms of there being people-centric activities like markets and like nightlife and that kind of thing, New Zealand is not the busiest place. So I can see where they're coming from. But on the flip side, there are some Chinese people who come to New Zealand for the very reason that it is quiet and more laid back than the hustle and bustle of China. So I think that one kind of goes down to your personality. So yes, nothing to do is a fair point, but whether you see that as a valid point, again, kind of depends on your own preferences. The second one would be the fact that there is fewer fresh goods available here in New Zealand. Certainly in China, there's a lot of markets which sell live fish, freshly killed animals, which you can buy the meat of. In New Zealand, a lot of stuff we accept, we're just going to buy it frozen. You buy a chicken, often you buy a frozen chicken. You buy fish, it's already been gutted and the meat is on ice. You're very rarely going to pick a live fish out of a tank and get them to slaughter it on the spot for you, whereas that's much more common in China. So my in-laws don't like the non-fresh items of food. They think it tastes better to have it fresh and don't like having everything frozen. I assume there are regulations here in New Zealand which control the slaughter of animals. I'm far from an expert in that regard, but I would imagine that's the reason why. They need to be killed in a certain way, and then it is put on ice before it is sold to the customers. So perhaps a bit of a kind of animal welfare difference as opposed to freshness of product difference. But certainly if you're used to being able to get everything absolutely fresh, that would be a frustrating one to come here and not have that available option, unless you have your own farm, in which case slaughter your own animals. And then the third one I feel like is kind of them worrying about their grandchildren, because they did spend the entire winter here in New Zealand with us, and my kids undoubtedly picked up some bugs from school, needed to go to the doctor. My daughter needed to have a blood test. The fact that you have to queue for the doctors and wait days for the blood test results and that kind of thing is not something they're used to. The fact that the medical system is slow is something that they're not used to. Here in New Zealand, it's obviously a publicly funded medical system, so resources are always spread pretty thin. So you might have to wait 1, 2, 3 hours to get your child or yourself seen by a clinic doctor. If you don't have anything too life-threatening, but you want to get it checked out, there's a good chance you're going to have to wait to be seen by the medical staff. And again, the blood test results probably not going to be available on the spot. You might have to wait a day or two. If it's over the weekend, you might have to wait even longer to get those test results. My in-laws are much more used to, you go there, you pay for the appointment, you get the doctor to see you, you go there, you pay for the test, you get the results pretty much immediately, take it back to the doctor, and you're kind of away. So I guess if you wanted to pay things, you could get it done. User pays, do it privately here in New Zealand, and it would be quicker. But if you are using the public system, it's just going to be a bit slower. So I get why that is one. If you're used to being able to get results quickly, is kind of a frustrating one. But as I said, the user pays option is there. It is just horrendously expensive. So yes, 3 things that I noticed trended with my colleagues in China that they would complain about, and 3 things that my in-laws have expressed a bit of frustration with over the last 3 months. Far from complete lists, but just the ones off the top of my head. You guys let me know your thoughts on the ones that I have missed. If you lived in China, what did you find frustrating? Hopefully not the fact that they speak Chinese there, because my British colleague probably should have expected that, to be honest. He probably could have learned a bit of Chinese before heading to China if he wanted to communicate with the Chinese people. But yeah, or likewise if you visited New Zealand. or another country? What did you find a bit annoying about the way they do things? Take care, folks, and I'll talk to you again soon. Ta-ra.